Hello everyone out there in YouTube land, and welcome to DC Fans United. Today I am continuing my series of reviews by taking a look back at Countdown number 49. Countdown, known as Countdown to Final Crisis for its last 24 issues, was a comic book limited series published by DC Comics. It debuted on May 9th, 2007, and since this is a countdown, the story order for the reading goes backwards. So you start with issue 51 and count down to issue 1. So issue 49 is written by Dan Dinney and Tony Bedard, with pencils by Carlos Magno, inks by Jay Lestine, and colors by Rod Reese. The cover is by Andy Kubert and Moose Bayman. Now, I will have links to issue 51 and 50 in the description box in case you missed them. So the cover's okay. It's not my favorite, especially for an Andy Kubert. I mean, he is a master. I don't know if he was a little rushed or whatever. I mean, it's not like it's bad or anything. It's just kind of a boring cover. And considering he's one of the best artists there is, it's a little boring. But if you zoom in on the characters inside the clenched fist, they're really well drawn and all that, so it's pretty good. It's not as, I don't like it as much as the last two covers, but it's certainly passable. So we start off on the first page, and even though this comic book series, Countdown, it really jumps around a lot, at least it's pretty linear. So we pick up on the first page where we left off in the last issue, and it's Jimmy Olsen. He's at Arkham Asylum, and he just interviewed the Joker. And as he's leaving, he's talking on the phone to Lois, and Killer Croc gets loose and kills a guard and jumps on Jimmy Olsen, so it looks like he's going to kill him. But you see on this page, this really great splash page, Jimmy Olsen apparently has the powers of Plastic Man. As you can see, he's getting pulled in every direction by Killer Croc. Isn't dying from it, you know, he isn't being torn apart. So you get the title for the issue. It's called Stretching the Truth, so that's pretty good. And I don't usually like the Plastic Man effect. He's not my favorite character or anything, because his movements are so unrealistic. But I gotta say, this is really well drawn. You can see Jimmy's hand in the kind of in the foreground dropping his phone. And if you look at the phone, it really dates this comic from being from like 2007, because that is an old school phone. Alright, so we go to the next page, and Jimmy actually kicks Killer Croc and knocks him back. And Killer Croc says, "What the hell? These people pump me so full of meds, I can't even trust my eyes anymore. But I bet you'll taste just fine." And then on the bottom right panel there, you see Killer Croc gets shocked from behind, because all the police and the guards are there now, and they subdued him. So they're like, "Wow, you're really brave standing your ground. I can't believe Killer Croc didn't shred you." And Jimmy's like, "I kind of thought he did. Maybe all the adrenaline is messing with my head." And we go to the next page, and it's the monitors, and they are recapping what happened in issue 51, where Duella Dent was killed by one of them. And they're arguing about it. This is a big part of the storyline too. It's the monitors. One of them decided to go and start killing people who were on Earths that they didn't belong on. So if they're from Earth 2 and they're on Earth 1, he wants to kill them. And another one of the monitors is arguing about it with him and saying it wasn't the right thing to do. So then they have this page here where they're showing some of the ones who are on Earths they aren't supposed to be on. But all this is really about is tying up the loose ends from the Crisis event that happened 22 years before this came out. Crisis on Infinite Earths is really a terrific book, and I like it a lot, but it left a lot of loose ends, particularly with certain characters like Jason Todd and Donna Troy being two of the primary ones you hear about all the time. So it's kind of interesting, and that's basically the premise of this, is they are deciding whether or not they should kill off all the people who are on improper Earths. So then we go to the next page, and they're on the JLA satellite. And if you saw my review of the last issue, you know Karate Kid got in a fight with Batman. They didn't explain why yet, but he fought Batman and was actually winning. He was gonna win, but Black Lightning came up behind him and gave him the old Black Lightning shock to the back. So now they have Karate Kid here in a cell. And then what he says here is actually very funny, because he's saying, you know, oh, Red Arrow's there to question him, and Karate Kid's like, well, why would I talk to you, Red Arrow? You're not even in the history books. The first 5 heroes that came to interrogate me, at least they're in the history books. So Red Arrow's like, oh, because Karate Kid is completely unheard of? Do me a favor, will ya? Wax off. So Karate Kid got under his skin there. And then we changed scenes yet again, because, you know, we can't go more than 2 pages and with following one character. So we're on another page here, and it's this big fat business guy, and he's on a boat, and he takes all his money from his account and puts it into another account and then jumps off the boat. And on the next page we find out it is because the rogues are there, and Pied Piper apparently can control people with his flute. You know, he does music and convinces them of whatever he wants. So he convinced the guy to put his money into... So he puts the money in Mirror Master's account. So Mirror Master will vouch for them and get him into the rogues. So once the money transfers, he says, oh, that's great. But the Piper steals the money from the laptop. Somehow he puts it on a flash drive, I guess. And, you know, Mirror Master's like, you bastard, what'd you do with my money? And Piper says, I took it. And Mirror Master's gonna kill him, but Piper says, you owe me for killing my parents. So Mirror Master's just like, fine, we're even now, but cross me again and you die. And Piper says, we'll never be even, Mirror Master, but I'm pro enough to work around it. So I don't know the storyline where Mirror Master killed the Piper's parents, but if you know what comic that's in, I'd like to read it, so let me know down in the comments if you know what that is referring to. So the Piper and the Trickster go out to the back of the boat and they're talking, and Trickster of course is very smart, and he figured out what Piper had done, because Piper's kind of a low-key good guy, even though he's trying to act like he's a villain. He convinced that guy, the big fat rich guy, that he can swim all the way back to shore, because it's basically mind control with his song. So instead of the guy jumping off and killing himself like he told Mirror Master, he actually told him to jump off and swim back to shore. And when he's under that kind of mental power, he could actually do it, even though he's out of shape. You know, he's just gonna swim like a machine until he gets there. So I thought that was pretty cool. But Trickster then blackmails him and makes the Piper give him the money. And it's kind of sad too, because it says here on this bottom panel, it's the Homeless Children's Fund, so that's who Piper had actually given the money to. And it was $100 million. So we go to the next page, and it's Mary Marvel. I'm glad to find out what's happening with her. And she went to Gotham for some reason. They don't say why, but it's exactly what Lady Xanadu told her not to do in the last issue. That's essentially all she told her was don't go to Gotham. So she goes to Gotham, and she doesn't have her powers, and of course she's a really pretty young woman. And she starts getting chased by some bad street level guys, and they chase her into this abandoned building, and she goes in there, and the guy who's chasing her runs through the door behind her, but gets grabbed and lifted up off the floor and killed. And you see that it was Black Adam who did it. So Mary is running through the room, and she trips over a body and falls to the floor and says, who were they? And Black Adam is up there on the railing looking all creepy, and he says, drug addicts, squatters, real estate agents, people who were stupid enough to intrude upon my solitude. People like you. And he flies at her. And then she says, Adam, wait, it's me, Mary Marvel. And he says, well then, this day is not a total loss. So that's the end of the issue. Oh, actually, it carries on. It has 2 extra pages here at the end called History of the Multiverse, Chapter 1. And this is written by Dan Jurgens. It's really cool. It's just 2 pages, but they have this History of the Multiverse is at the end of a lot of these issues. So what it does is it just gives you a tiny bit of information about the multiverse. You know, it lives up to what it says. So what they say here is they're looking at the beginning of time when the universe exploded, or the multiverse exploded out of nothing. So it's just the very beginning of it. But it's essentially your history lesson if you haven't read Crisis on Infinite Earths and all that old school stuff. So I thought that was really cool. They included that to kind of help explain a little bit to people what's going on, because like I said, this countdown jumps around all over the place. So that's all for now. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you aren't subscribed, please subscribe. If you click the bell next to the subscription button, it will give you a notification whenever I put up a new video. Alright, that's all for now, and as always, thanks for watching.
End of line.